John Crosby once said, mentorship is an ear to listen, a brain to pick, and a push in the right direction. My name is Andre Tillotson, and before I get started about my speech, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me specifically. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, born in a single-parent household, raised by my mom and my grandma. So my circumstances are pretty unique. I have a younger or older sister and two stepsisters who are younger than me. So when I grew up, I didn't have a father around. I was about 2 when my father had left and my parents were divorced. So, by the time I was 8, I was pretty independent. I knew how to make ramen noodles. I could do the laundry, iron. And I'm not joking. I really didn't know how to do all this stuff. And most people don't believe me. So I was a real, what people would call a mama's boy. I love being around my mother. Every day we'd go to the park, we'd eat. And I just loved that one-on-one time I had with her. Because guess what? She had 3 jobs. So my time with her is really very, very, very limited. So I got it in when I could. And I decided, hey, my mom is a very inspiring person to me. So what makes her so inspiring? The fact is, not only did she raise me, but she showed me a new way of life that I never thought was possible. So I mentioned my dad. Now, don't get me wrong, my dad is a great guy. No hard feelings. He still lives in Dallas. We still hang out all the time. So it just wasn't a right match for them. But he told me, son, there's one thing that your mom did right in her life, and that is she raised y'all perfectly. So I was thinking, when I arrived in college, what do I want to do specifically? What do I want to do with my life? And I decided what I want to do is give back. Specifically to me, being raised by a mom and a grandma and an older sister, most of my mentors were women. I mean, being around that, you kind of have to develop your own sense of manhood, and that's kind of hard to do, as you can imagine. Shopping isn't my thing. So I decided rather, that I'm going to give something that I didn't have the chance to, and that is being a mentor to someone who had my kind of circumstance. So to start off, I'm going to give y'all a story. It's kind of a funny story, and it's a very real life story. So I'm a mentor for this program called Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Some of y'all might have heard of it. It's basically a mentor program aimed towards underprivileged youth. So I took my little to the TCU campus. I really wanted him to get the college experience. Like, hey, this is going to work. He's going to want a TCU. It's going to be great. So I get tickets to the football game. I'm like, okay, here we go. Sit him down, get him his popcorn, his nachos, his hot dog. He's all excited. He's like ready for the game to start. And the game starts, it's all loud. The crowd is there. The voices are there. And he's just sitting there. I notice he's not having that good of a time. So I'm like, that's weird. It's a TCU football game. We're up 50-0. It's New Mexico or something. So I'm like, you should be enjoying yourself. And at first I'm like, okay, maybe we'll try something else. So I'm like, all right, man, let's go. I know you ain't having a good time. He's like, okay, cool. So I take him to the rec center. He's like, hey, look, we have basketball courts. We have swimming pools, tennis, everything here. He's like, okay. So we play a little bit of basketball. He's still not having a good time. I'm like, man, football, took him to the rec, fed him. Like, what more do I need? I was like, all right. So it gets on later in the day. We start doing other things. I take him to my dorm. We watch some TV, play video games. He's still not having that good of a time. So I'm like, man, what can I do? I was like, oh, well, you want to go meet some of my friends? He's like, sure. So we go to the Blue. Kid freaks out. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's like, wow, y'all have pizza any day? Y'all can eat nachos any day, hot dogs any day? And like the Blue food to us is kind of like, yeah, it's all right. He's like, man, that's crazy. You get to hang out with your friends and come here. It's like, yeah, man, after class, we always hang out, play some cards. And he's like, man, I really like that. And it wasn't until later that I really figured out why he was so excited, and it really made my day. Much like me, when I mentioned I knew how to make top ramen when I was 8, this kid didn't have a meal to go home to every night. So for him, having food any day was a real big deal. So it's like, the little thing that I thought was like, oh my God, I make top ramen. And to him was like, top ramen is there. It's just crazy to think about. So I decided, man, it's stories like these that people need to be hearing. It's stories like these that really get people to be motivated and get out there. So after that, he, calls me and says, hey, thanks. I really enjoyed my time here. It was great. I'm like, oh man, I'm really glad, appreciate it. He's like, yeah, when can we go to the Blue? So since then, we've been back on a couple Blue visits. We got him some pizza, some hot dogs, all that fun stuff. And I'm happy to say that he wants to go to TCU now, so I feel like I did something in his life. But it's stories like that, that really make people realize what they're missing and what they can get back. Now, there are those who say, I'm too old. I can't get back. I don't have enough time. I have 3 jobs. My mom did it and raised 2 kids, you know? So for me, it's like I have 2 jobs as well because I pretty much have my mom's blood. I love working. I like getting out there. So, I have 2 jobs. I go to school full time and I'm involved in a bunch of extracurricular activities. So for me, I was really thinking, where do I have the time to do this? And as I mentioned, Big Brothers Big Sisters is kind of my outlet to do that. It's only about 2 hours every week. So I figured I can just not hang out with friends one night and hang out with, make a positive influence on someone's life. So that's what I did. And for those of you who are just debating whether or not you have time to do this, kind of look at the things that you're doing now and see what you can take out. So for me, mentorship is really a vital part of who I am and who I am today and what it made me. And another thing I want to share with y'all is just some statistics because, it's all about results, really. So just some statistics to share with you guys. People who have mentors in their lives voted 95% that college is very important. Graduating from college is very important. 75% of those students graduate from high school. 50% aren't doing drugs. 50% aren't in gangs. Why? An ear to listen, a brain to pick, and a push in the right direction. Simple as that. For me, I have my mom. Where would I be without my mom? I'm not too sure. But it's things like that you have to realize what got you where you are today. And I didn't have a mentor when I grew up. I had my mom and I had my sister. Like I mentioned, I am my own man. The person you see today is who I built myself up to be. So, if I can help somebody show the qualities of a man and what it takes to be a man, then I'm going to do that. Another interesting story that I have with y'all is like one quick story. It's really not that deep. It's actually rather funny. But it does have a really good meaning behind it. So, one of the other bigs and Big Brothers Big Sisters tell me, like, man, it's been 6 months. I'm not getting through to my little. I'm pretty sure he hates me. I'm like, he doesn't hate you. You got to warm up to you because these kids, take a lot of time to kind of open up to somebody because in their lives, they're used to people walking out on them or not being around. So just give it some time. So it's about 6 months into this big brother, little brother thing. And he's like, well, what do you like to do? Because obviously what I'm doing isn't working. He's like, really what I like to do is just write poetry. And he's like, okay, we can write some poetry. So he writes his poetry, he's writing his poems down, and he starts off, violets are red, roses are blue, and all that fun stuff. And the kid looks at him, and he's just like, no, I meant write poetry. So the kid pulled out his poetry. Mind you, this kid is in 5th grade, okay? And he has one of the greatest poems I ever heard in my life. I have it in my wall because it's so inspirational. But it's really not that long of a poem. And it's just really, really speaks to human spirit. And it goes a little something like this. I am a man. 4 feet, 9 inches tall. Boy, I'm a man. You may not know it to look at me, but I am strong. I will persevere, and I will make something of myself. Despite my circumstances, I am man. Very simple. And I couldn't even replicate that. I was like, man, that's crazy. He's in 5th grade. Writing poetry like that. It's inspiring. It's just inspiring. I can't help but smile when I talk about this because like the little things you do to inspire somebody are just crazy. So from then he got inspired to write more poetry, and he actually inspired his big. A little inspired his big. So it always goes to show that you can learn anything from anyone, and that's the beauty of mentorship. It's for both parties. You'll learn a little bit more about yourself as well as others. They'll learn more from you, And it's just a one-on-one relationship that you can't describe. It is like a brotherhood of sorts. So in closing, I just want to say that if you're ever thinking about your life and if you want to do better, just remember that there's people out there who cannot wait for your help. And why the number one reason I'm so supportive of mentorship is simply this: it will save a life.